Welcome to our daily news program coming to you from Canal, Algérie, and in today's top stories. The President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, and the National Defense Minister chairs a meeting of the High Security Council devoted to the assessment of the country's general situation. The President of the Republic instructs the Religious Affairs Ministry to allow 2,000 citizens aged 70 and more and drawn 10 times to accomplish Hajj or pilgrimage. In line with the President's guidelines, the Foreign Affairs Ministry kicks off an operation evacuating the Algerian nationals settled in Sudan with a toll-free number at their full disposal. Removing the investment obstacles is behind launching several important projects in both Biscara and Elisi provinces. And Mshunish village in Biscara province, a highly symbolic and tourist site, is highlighted by the end of our today's bulletin. Good evening and welcome back. First up in our news, the President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, presided on Monday a meeting of the High Security Council devoted to the assessment of the country's general situation. In other news, the President of the Republic instructed the Religious Affairs Ministry to allow 2,000 citizens aged 70 and more and who have been drawn 10 times over the past years to accomplish Hajj or pilgrimage within the quota granted to Algeria for the current year, according to a communique released by the Presidency. In a new development, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad announced on Monday the beginning of an evacuation operation of our nationals settled in Sudan who wish to leave the country and the staff of the Algerian embassy in Khartoum. This operation comes following the instructions of the President of the Republic in a context marked by the deplorable situation in brotherly Sudan. It is important to note that all means were mobilized to ensure the smooth running of this operation, according to the Foreign Affairs Ministry, which also said that it is closely monitoring the situation via a crisis unit set up for this purpose. The Foreign Affairs Ministry calls on Algerian nationals in this country to be vigilant and cautious and to stay in touch with its different services via the toll-free number and the email address appearing on the screen. A number of countries evacuated their nationals from the Sudanese territory, which sadly turned into a real battlefield, especially in the capital Khartoum, following the attacks between the army and the elements of the Rapid Support Forces. The international community is called upon so as to find a settlement to this critical situation. Melissa Kubash reports.
The situation remains tense in Sudan. Repatriation operations are still ongoing. Thousands of foreigners were evacuated, while hundreds remain stranded in the Sudanese territory. In Djibouti, a number of foreign troops are welcoming families after Khartoum turned into a combat field 9 days ago. Bombings, airstrikes, and gunshots are taking over the streets in the capital. Only one thought is running through the head of the 5 million inhabitants fleeing the city that turned into chaos. Without water nor electricity, people are screaming for help.
It's a chaotic situation. We are expecting the worst. Here, inhabitants are denied access to water or electricity. We are truly suffering. May God help us. As you can see, the situation keeps worsening. Ever since this combat, we have no water nor electricity.
calls to put an end to fighting are multiplying. The World Health Organization called for an immediate end of these deadly attacks against medical centers. The Sudanese Union of Doctors launched a call as well to the international community so as to receive help with the urgent and critical sanitary situation prevailing in their country.
In a different context and in his capacity as a special envoy of the President of the Republic, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad arrived on Monday to Nouakchott, the capital of Mauritania, as part of a working visit in line with the efforts meant to consolidate the relations of brotherhood, cooperation and coordination between the two brotherly countries. At the beginning of his visit, Ahmed Attaf held a face-to-face meeting with his counterpart Mohammed Salem Wild Marzouk, which was then enlarged to include delegations from the two countries. A working session was later on held focusing on bilateral relations and continued efforts to promote cooperation in the vital sectors. The two parties welcomed the exceptional dynamics that characterizes the Algerian-Mauritanian relations in the framework of the implementation of the guidelines of the country's leaders following the state visit of the Mauritanian President Mohammed Ould Sheikh Al Ghazouani in December of 2021, as well as the meetings held such as the 19th session of the High Algerian-Mauritanian Joint Commission held in Nouakchott. This was crowned by the signing of 26 conventions and memoranda of understanding in several sectors. As part of the political dialogue between the two countries, the two ministers reviewed issues of common interest at the Maghreb and Arab levels. They also discussed the latest developments in the Sahel-Saharan region at the continental level. The two ministers then stressed the importance of strengthening views to face these several threats. A memorandum of understanding was then signed on the occasion for the creation of a sustainable mechanism for strengthening political dialogue between Algeria and Mauritania. Moving on to investment, the lifting of obstacles facilitated the launch of a good number of projects, as it was the case in the province of Biscara, where numerous projects have seen the light once again. Story by Midi Sagelbash.
After removing the obstacles and granting the facilitations, this paint factory in Biscara province is finally resuming its activity, hoping to move towards exports and meet the national market's need.
As you can see, the project is 100% ready. Our production capacity can exceed 400 tons per day. Half of it will be destined to export.
The ophthalmology clinic is another example of a project resuming its activity. After the visit of the commission in charge of lifting obstacles, investors have received guarantees. We've been waiting for a month now. Today we are very optimistic. The governor reassured us they will help us speed up the procedures at the level of the ministry as well. The investment list is still long, of all projects benefiting from these facilitations in the province of Biscara, which will hopefully bring an added value to the region.
Let's take you now to the extreme south of the country, one of the most beautiful outdoor masterpieces. Elysee, the mystical beauty of the place, keeps inspiring tourism projects. Many hotels are being constructed, which will allow the city to meet the growing number of the Algerian and foreign tourists. Ines Kalut tells us more.
Considered today as a privileged destination for national and foreign tourists, Elysee has been for some years a hot spot during the spring season. It must be said that the province witnesses a real dynamics in the tourist sector. Investors are jostling and projects are numerous.
Qu'est-ce que c'est important dans les déserts aujourd'hui, c'est la sécurité.
Security is very important in the desert, and the Algerian security system is very exceptional. It's a real fantastic place. We are feeling free and we can go around in the desert in a total security, and that's very important for the Europeans and everybody. Security is something very important.
Bien pour les Italiens, pour tout le monde.
We crossed 3 deserts at this time, the Tuyudan, Tufernin and Isawan, and it was really great.
et ça a été vraiment super.
Élysée is a purely tourist province. The tourists appreciated, in particular, the facilitations granted by the state in terms of visa issuing.
The great influx of tourists to the Tassili Niger has encouraged visitors to start building private accommodation facilities in order to improve the reception capacity and consolidate the hotel's infrastructures to drain tourists.
We want to promote domestic tourism by building reception structures that go with the visitors' expectations.
These investments will help to meet the needs of the region's visitors and to reinvigorate tourism in the great Algerian south and to highlight the history and beauty of the most enchanting gate of the Tassili Niger.
Moving on to medical tourism, the Sylvie Tour Tourism Agency in Niger offers stays in Algeria and full guidance for Nigerians seeking medical or tourist visas to our country. Najah Tayyar tells us more.
From now on, it will be possible for Nigerians to operate their medical checkups in Algeria thanks to Sylvie Tour Tourism Agency, founded in 2021 by 2 Algerian nationals in Niamey. This agency was created in April 2021. Our main goal was to create Algerian local tourism. The objective of this agency is to make Algeria better known by its sub-Saharan neighbors, and the second goal is the medical tourism since it's highly demanded. Depending on the type of treatment chosen, the agency contacts its various partners in Algeria for better taking charge of patients.
Et vous avez un dossier médical?
Oui.
Ok, donc après on va vraiment transmettre le dossier médical à la clinique en Algérie.
Une fois que son dossier est accepté, on fait la demande de visa au notre ambassade.
Now the patients have the opportunity to travel to Algeria and visit the local Algerian clinics. Before the trip of the patient, he will be provided with all details. The medical file will be transmitted and the demand of visa submitted at the level of our embassy. And once all is accepted, we accompany the patient all along his trip until his way back home. Now we aim to create other agencies here in Niger in order to facilitate the local and medical tourism. The owners of the agency plan to create other subsidiaries throughout Niger in order to meet the huge demand of patients.
In a different story, the Ministry of National Defense released a communique which stated the following: as part of the fight against terrorism and thanks to the efforts of the security services of the People's National Army, a terrorist surrendered on the 23rd of April to the military authorities of Burj Beji Mukhtar. Khadir Khalifa, known as Bilaj, who joined the active terrorist groups in the Sahel region in 2017, had in his possession a machine gun, 1 Kalashnikov, 3 ammunition chargers, a satellite communication device, in addition to a quantity of ammunition of different types. This operation proves once again the high level of vigilance of our armed forces units in charge of fighting terrorism and securing our borders. We wind up our news with Biscara, where we will discover the historical village of Mshunish, a home of great historical events during the War of Liberation, as well as monuments and natural sites. Story by Najah Tayyar.
The gate of this village is a little bit similar to that of Tarit. Mshunish or Himsunin is very known for its gorges, its brick houses and its magnificent palm groves bordering the valley. We are in the region that's about 30 kilometers far from Biscara. When we speak of Himsunin, we will refer directly to its history and tourism. There are nice gorges, a very old hotel that soon will be rehabilitated, also Wed Hay and Wed Labyad, 2 rivers that come from Wed Shilia. And when we turn through history, we can't forget the Battle of Mshunish in 1844 when the village was attacked by the French army. The beauty of the place is almost ignored by the inhabitants when they evoke the revolutionary past of Himsunin, one of the first popular revolts led by Sadiq al-Hajj and of Colonel Sil Houaz, head of the historical 6th province, whose birthplace has been transformed into a museum. This village is very rich in history and of tourist sites, as well as largely demanded traditional crafts. We are doing our best to preserve these very special assets. Everyone who has visited Mshunish once is doomed to go back to revisit this place full of history and fascinating sights such as the pottery factory, the village hotel, the road of limestone, and Edid Mountain, the scene of the famous Battle of Barqouq.
And with that, we come to the end of our today's program. Thank you for watching us, and goodbye.